So thanks everyone for joining us, even though it's so close to Christmas, right? But we will still want to have the last user group meeting for the end of the year. Some ground rules: mute yourself when you're not talking, and if you have any questions to the presenters, uh, just uh, just ask in the Zoom chat. Or I think most of the presenters are usually okay. So if you want, just talk on the mic itself. And we are always looking for speakers. So if you have any interesting talks that you want to present the next time, right, feel free to reach out to me. Cool. Thanks to my company for sponsoring the Zoom channel. And thanks Amazon for their support. I think the user group needs a lot of love. So yeah, thanks. Okay, it's all about the community itself. We are on meetup.com. I think that's where most of you know us. We also do have a Slack group. Okay, so if you want to connect a lot closer to the local community in Singapore, right, this is the place to join. Okay, so if you're not inside, just make sure you take you can find this link, this tiny URL, or if not, just go to the Meetup page, and we have the link on the Meetup page itself. Okay, announcements. So I think Reinvent is over already, but there's going to be a second half of Reinvent next month. I think it's from January 12th to 14th. Later on, I would have the dates. But basically, there's like an overflow of 200 sessions that they are intending to broadcast during that time. So if you're interested to see what other content that they have, just log in into the website and you can find out the more information about that. Okay, and for the meetup tonight itself, we're gonna have two speakers. First is Patryk, who's on the call. He's going to be going first, and he's going to be talking about working with Nitro Enclaves in Java. And later on, I will be talking about Reinvent itself and giving a recap to everyone. And lastly, usually for those who join the meetup, we normally have a beer in real life. But since we are all online right now, so we normally just stay back after the Zoom call and just feel free to catch up on anything under the sun. Yeah. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Patryk to start the ball rolling.
Okay, hi guys. So thanks for coming. Yeah, today I'm gonna briefly show you my experience working with the Nitro Enclaves. Try to also give some recap when it comes to what it is and what it can help you to do, and why do we need to have that in general. And yeah, in any case, just unmute yourself and speak up if you want to, if you have any questions. Um, yeah, and I think we can start from now. Yeah, and basically I'm Patryk. I'm based here in Singapore. I work for ThoughtWorks, and yeah, been working with AWS for the past like 5 years. We also got yeah, so SA Pro cert. So I think I'm quite familiar with, like a little bit familiar with how we can create something on AWS. And yeah, so and basically like 2 months ago, right, more or less, AWS announced of like something like Nitro Enclaves, right, that is basically an AWS solution to secure enclaves, right? Another like different concept, and yeah, to give some overview, right? What is that? What it does to everyone, right? Secure enclaves are a kind of trusted execution environments, right, where you can isolate a given environment to so-called kind of higher security level. And many different vendors, providers, companies provided their secure enclaves. That includes Apple, right, with its T2 chip. There is also like other processor vendors like Intel provides their own secure environment, a secure enclave, which is basically used by Azure. as well. GCP has some confidential VMs. There's some open source initiatives. There are lots of things in this topic, right? And so it's good quite to assess this idea in general. But AWS provided their own approach to secure enclaves with Nitro enclaves, right? And it works basically in a way that right, we have a parent EC2 instance that instance is able to spawn an enclave, and then the only way to communicate with that enclave is through secure local channel. How and yeah, like that's the theory, right? I think even like a month ago, there was one guy from AWS and this meetup, and he described this idea as well. But let's maybe go deeper into details now, right? Because we are talking about actual working with this product, right? This local channel uses so-called VSOCs, and VSOC is standardized way to communicate between virtual machines. It's not only between it's not only used in Nitro, right, on EC2s. It's I think it originates from KVM, some like other hypervisors for virtual machines. But it's supported by it's supported, and its drivers for VSOCs. Sockets are provided in Linux out of the box. About that in a moment. But basically, from the enclave, you are able also to communicate to the to Nitro secure module. And what this secure module has is, well, this actually acts as a kind of root of trust for AWS, so that this secure module is able to attest, verify, like confirm some of the messages that for example, some requests are being made from the enclave. Everything is to ensure that enclaves can be quite secure, right? So that you can store there some secure, some confidential data, right? Highly valuable information, um, right? And that will be not interacting with other things that are on your EC2 instance, right? Because on your EC2 instance, you can have like various applications, third-party libraries, right? You also can have like the SolarWinds, right? Recently became quite famous. So you can have lots of things that you don't much, you may not necessarily trust, right? But in here you can trust them. But now, how can we? Yeah, and there's also like one thing that from the enclave, right? You can make a communication to KMS, right? To get because KMS stores ECMK, right? So it stores the keys that you can use for data encryption, and KMS has integration with Nitro Secure Module, so you can use like additional SDK in your applications to like to make use of this communication to ensure that only you can only decrypt data from Nitro Enclave. But that's basically what this Nitro Enclave is. And then maybe let's go to different parties because essentially when it comes to talking about those enclaves, it's good to distinguish three different parties when we're talking about that topic. The first one is data owner, which is an entity that owns an encryption key. If you encrypt some data that you decrypt in an enclave, data owner allows enclave to decrypt the data, and yeah, the data owner basically encrypts the data. Right? There is the the parent instance administrator, and the person, that entity owns parent instance, manages the enclave lifecycle. It has no permissions to decrypt data. It's like the administrator is not able to decrypt the data. Right? That's the goal. Right, and administrator, of course, setups a parent, setups parent to proxy request to KMS in any case, right? So because there's only one local channel to communicate, like to communicate between the enclave and the outside world, that the parent must be a party to proxy requests. But that's I will talk about in a moment. The third party in the whole picture is an application developer, right? And that party is our area of focus because I've basically been working on a library to support application developer with working with enclaves. But application developer builds enclave image used to run on an enclave and implements code to be deployed on EC2 parent and or enclave. Right? So developer creates a software that will be run on the parent and within enclave. So how that can be done? And in the meantime, let me run start executing an example, which will hopefully finish within 9 minutes. So how this can be done? Of course, how it can be done with Java, right? Because basically, from my side, I'm more like a more Java developer. So it's more familiar for me to create software in Java. And the thing is that all of the examples that are implementing that are that are showcases of Nitro enclaves are in Python. So yeah, if you want to use now Nitro enclaves, it means that you need to use Python or Rust or C, C++, which is maybe not something that you want to use, but it depends. It's more up to you. But basically, as I mentioned, right, in order to establish communication between the parent and an enclave, you need to use VSOC. And VSOC is basically Linux. Well, VSOC is a way to communicate between like a virtual machines, right, and the host they're running on. This is provided in Linux and kernel, right, and there's also like an issue in Python which adds support for this VSOC. There is no support for VSOCs in Java. So what I had to do basically is to re-implement sockets for VSOC. So basically had to create a new project, right? Implement some Java classes for VSOC. Implement GNI, some code in C++ to call the sockets, but to also to make use of the we have something here. Well, to make use of the VSOC address family, so that the communication, the VSOC communication will be available in Java. That was painful, but I managed to write almost production-like code. There are some cases need to support, but it's mostly like some additional functionalities. But once there is this connectivity, right, there's also a need to have more things, right? Because okay, this having a sockets to establish communication is kind of the base, right, that we can work on. But then what you also need to have is that you need to have some sort of server in the enclave, right, so that you can get requests from parent, for example. You need to have a proxy to KMS in enclave. And you also need to have communication with Nitro security module, right? This module to basically establish the communication. Right? And yeah, for that, we set up an additional project, which is, yeah, like some of the parts are still in progress. I haven't managed to make the communication with the NSN, sorry. Yeah, like the thing is that AWS provides an API for communication with the Nitro Secure module. Of course, it's written in Rust, right? Because Rust is the language to go for the EC2 team at AWS. But yeah, it's quite verbose to read if I want to rewrite it to Java. But fortunately, yeah, with help of a friend, managed to send some questions to one of the project managers responsible for Nitro Enclaves, and hopefully we'll get some more documentation. Or maybe it could be published, basically, right? Because that will be useful also for other projects. But yeah, that's the idea, right? And I like to run and to test those libraries, right? To test to make some example run in Java environment, and to test out the implementation of this VSOC in Java, and also to be able to write the like it's showing here basically, like to set up to write some code that will be used in an enclave, to run the KMS proxy in enclave, and also to write the code that will be used in the parent. Yeah, let's wrote some example. And yeah, like the example that I will show in a moment will just run from one host, and that code will act as one of like those three roles at once, right? As an application developer, data owner, and instant administrator. Because yeah, I need to basically like, well, yeah, I have basically running code that where you can just go um, and like simple command, just try to set up your own enclave, just to play around, right? So for that, you can always what you can do is that you can um, go to this project, right? AWS Enclave, and yeah, there's like one command that you can run that will set up everything in your default AWS account. But what I actually was doing is that yeah, I ran the setup, the example code, where I basically where basically I'm able to yeah, like create parent EC2 instance. Within that, prepare sample Docker image, which includes building of a sample server in the enclave. And maybe show the code there, right? So we have some sample server, like, and that listens to the request, the incoming requests, and like very like verbose, like server, like verbose, basic server. Runs the proxy for KMS requests. And yeah, I mean, it comes to the code within Enclave. Um, it's pretty nice. Like I managed to use the AWS KMS SDK, like regular SDK for the AWS from AWS. It just had to do some uh, slight small adjustments to make it work, but it's basically possible. And yeah, then yeah, I'm just building an enclave, also like running an enclave, right, as a this parent administrator. Um, like on parent, I also need to run something like a vSoc proxy, right? To like proxy requests that are coming from an enclave to KMS, right? But once it's done, once the like our enclave is running, right, and our vSoc proxy is running, I can basically run a host. By running a host, it means that I can run server. Sorry, a client that will connect to Nitro Enclaves server and send some requests. Right? And as an example, I did encrypted in this code, right? I did encrypted some lorem ipsum text with a key, and then told the host, right, to run the client, to send a request to an enclave with encrypted text. And what the enclave sends us back, that's basically a response from an enclave, is decrypted code, decrypted lorem ipsum. Yeah, that could, yeah, and basically that's the whole sample. One. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically all when it comes to my presentation. Um, yeah, like it's something I just do like after work, just to try to find out technology. But I probably will continue like work on this library, like to establish this communication with NSM. Probably, hopefully, this PM from AWS will respond with some more documentation, or maybe we'll manage to find some way to uh, like make use of the API, this Rust based API to be used in Java. I will see. Maybe there will be also some way to bind that in a nice way. Yeah, and I think that's all I wanted to say. I'll just send you the link to presentation in the chat.
Okay, cool. Very interesting. For your own use case or for work, do you see anyone asking for Nitro Enclaves right now?
Not necessary for Nitro enclaves, but like at my work, we have clients that are asking for secure enclaves already. So yeah, that's something also a bit useful at my work.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think the Miro link can share it in the on the Meetup group. Yeah.
Oh, I also
Okay. Anyone else with any other questions? No. Going once. Going twice. Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
oh, thanks.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna be going through the reinvent. Oh wait. Okay. Yeah, that's a question.
Did I do any performance benchmark? Um, Not really. I did saw some performance benchmarks for when it comes to the VSOC implementation. I was thinking about adding that to be honest. But yeah, that will be also quite interesting thing to, uh, to do. Yeah. Uh, and in general, how, like it would be also very nice how to benchmark the whole communication with KMS. But like to do that, probably will need to just make use of the SDKs and the APIs that are provided by AWS out of the box, because yeah, that is as for today the only fully correct implementation. That is implementation that provides all of the functionalities.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Uh, yep. Can you all see the screen? Okay, I take that as a yes. Okay, cool. Just gonna be going through a recap of what has been happening over the past 3 weeks itself. Okay, so just about me. I'm a community hero in Singapore, and I run the Meetup group here. I used to come from an enterprise background, finance and telco, but right now I'm actually in a startup building a cloud security platform. Yeah, and I've past presentations that I found in that speaker deck over there. Cool. So Reinvent just pass. Okay, so this is just a 30 minutes talk, recap of kind of like the activities, announcements for sure, even my own experience and thoughts around the event. And lastly, I think it's quite interesting if like anyone else can share their experiences uh, about the conference itself. And I'll have some questions at each of the different areas just to provoke some discussions over there. Cool. So recap of activities that actually happened during Reinvent. I think some of you saw this during the last presentation that I did. But basically, there were 5 main keynotes, and they were like located, I think, in three different weeks itself. Starting with Andy Jesse's on the start of the month, and then Werner Vogels one was just about 9 days ago. Cool. Leadership sessions. If any one of you went for this, this is where normally all the VPs would be talking about their own respective areas, and just to give a lot more insights into like announcements or their thought leadership in those areas. Okay, definitely a lot of sessions that was happening. In fact, I can't keep track of all of them, and I didn't go for a lot of them. I think some of you might have gone for a lot more. Jams and game days. This is where there's like simulations. So in real life during Reinvent, that's where you have like people gathering to take part in either 3 hours or 5 hours get together to run through some challenges. Yeah, Builders Fair. I'm not too sure if anyone went for this, but I didn't go through this. And usually there'll be a partner sponsors booth during the Reinvent itself. Cool. Yeah. Some of y'all might have actually done certifications through the period. And lastly, there was a Deep Racer League Championship. My understanding is that I think there was people from Singapore who qualified for the last 10 placing. Yeah, but I'm not too sure who the winner after that was. Okay, so just questions. Did most of you attend Reinvent? And what specifically did you all actually were looking out for? Just the keynotes, or did y'all take part in any other things? Yeah, just open to the floor. Anyone?
So for me, trying to get into the public cloud world, coming from an infrastructure background, was good for the keynote and having a look at some of where the strategy is from a cloud point of view. But dipped in and out of some of the other sessions as well, especially with some of the hands-on sessions to see what the flavor of that then is. So as I start to do more and more, in the area of public cloud to then see kind of what's going on. But it's just such the volume of information that you get at Reinvent is just mind-boggling.
That is truly an understatement, and I feel you over there.
By the time it gets to Reinvent 2021, I've probably just about digested 2020.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of like I think like a 30% growth year on year on the amount of information that is presented, and especially also the amount of announcements.
I think I need an AI chip to be implanted in me so I can digest it with some ML and DL in there as well.
Okay, cool. You mentioned hands-on sessions. Were there any hands-on sessions that you felt was interesting, or what do you do?
So I come from an infrastructure background, so switches, routers, all that kind of thing. Also, I'm very heavily on security. So that's one of the reasons I'm actually in Singapore. So I've got a contract doing some security stuff for a big enterprise customer. So I'm trying to get more and more into that kind of cloud security space. So the security side of things, I'm just studying for the security specialist exam right now. It's just trying to understand, obviously, the shift towards cloud security compared to on-prem, and campus and that kind of data center type security, and it's basically, if you come from an infrastructure background, it's a translation of terms, which is the biggest challenge more than anything else. And I think the other thing as well, if you don't come from a systems and a SysOps type environment, things like databases will be a little bit alien to you as well. So getting into that area, so doing a few more hands-on and understanding KMS, data at rest, all those kind of things, IAM, is probably the main ones that were relevant to me. And obviously on the compliance and audit side of things were the other side of things as well. I'd like to get into chatbots and ML and DL and all those kind of things, but I think that's a bit of a step away beyond some of the stuff I'm looking at right now.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that's what actually Amazon has been emphasizing. I think like for the past 3 to 4 years, trying to get enterprises and people who came from the infrastructure world coming onto the cloud, and I think it gets a lot harder every year because the mental model is constantly shifting. Like you might understand you might understand a certain model like maybe 2 years ago, and when you look at the models that you can create right now on the cloud, it is totally shifted. Even for me, I'm struggling to keep up sometimes.
I mean, some of the announcements that I had recently with the new firewall service and transit gateway and all that kind of thing. Obviously, if you come from an infrastructure background, so you've got the big players like Palo Alto, Fortinet, all those kind of people. When you're building solutions into the cloud or extending your on-prem into the cloud, you're automatically using that. Now you've got this other thing that they've announced, and architects, when you're working with customers and partners, are now very confused and then say, okay, do I carry on using Palo Alto, or do I now use the AWS new service that they've just announced, right? And that's trying to peel the layers from under that with these new announcements to understand whether that's what to do going forward now.
Okay, understood. Okay, I think just to give the rest some airtime, Rahul, you mentioned you were doing some scavenger hunt from the other dog to win some swag. Can you tell us how was that experience?
Well, it was very hard. I actually managed to do all the questions, but still didn't manage to win. I don't know how many people actually participated. I think I did get in with a respectable time, but still I wasn't in the top 3. It's usual Datadog stuff. So I've done this every year now. I think they do this every year, and they usually have pretty good prizes. This year they were like giving Switch to each top 3 winners, Nintendo Switch. So I mean, I was hoping to win one, but didn't get. It was fun.
Cool. Was it like a series of exercises on their platform, or like how did it run?
Yeah, I mean, they had given demo accounts to each participant, and you had to like answer questions using like dashboards, using logs, using all the process information that their APM uh, collects. So everything on their platform.
Okay, cool. That sounded like fun. Yeah, you should have won something. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else with any other interesting experience? Okay. Okay. So this is where I think the next section is about. Okay. So the recap of announcements. I was trying very hard to find where's a condensed list of all the announcements that was announced, because it's very hard to track, even on Slack, even on the blogs and stuff. I get quite lost. So I managed to find this particular link. So if I can share with you the link later on. But yeah, so this link itself, they actually have all the announcement, which is pretty good. So I actually use to script a lot of the data that I have. Cool. Okay. So I think the way I'm going to present this is that the Reinvent has been happening over the past 3 weeks, right? And every week there was actually some announcements. So I'm just going to decouple, or rather destructure them down. Okay. So the first week, definitely Andy Jesse's keynote. I think this is the one most people should watch, because that's where he usually shits on Oracle or someone else. I think this year there was a less emphasis on that. I think it was more around announcements and going a lot more deep into all the cool stuff that they are doing. Yeah, and I think they announced some of the interesting stuff as well, which I'll go through a bit further. Okay. Okay. What I found interesting about this keynote, right, was that every time he announced an event, right, there was going to be like a virtual applause, right? So can you imagine this particular conference is usually attended by I think maybe 10,000 people, yeah. But in the space of the keynote, I think there was just him and him alone in that virtual setting. Okay. Then the other keynote that actually happened during the first week was the partner keynote. This one I haven't really looked through it. I'll probably look through it soon. Okay. So I think before we start, anyone want to guess how many announcements were there during the Reinvent throughout the 3 weeks?
4,000.
4,000? Oh my god. Okay, I think you I think you guys are too far off. Okay. Sorry, I mean it sounds like it was pretty overwhelming for all of you all. So but they just one last guess. Anyone? It's definitely not 1,000, it's definitely not 4,000. And definitely not
350.
350. Okay, it's lower than that. It's actually 145 or 44. That's still a lot within 3 weeks, and that number doesn't include pre-Reinvent announcements during the month of November, which I haven't included in any of the list here itself. Okay, cool. So I think during the first week there were like 60 plus announcements. I just highlighted the ones in purple, which I felt was a bit more interesting. Actually, some of them are pretty interesting if you come from an infrastructure background. But I think for the first one, serverless batch scheduling with batch and Fargate. So I think batch before they used to work with EC2, but right now you can actually use Fargate as the compute medium itself. Okay. So this was all the announcements, 14 of them. Then the next one, yeah, the GP3 volume came out, and the Babelfish and Lambda. All this I'll go through later. I think for Lambda, I think that's quite interesting because they actually upscale the amount of limit, the amount of resources that you can get, and the more memory you get, the more cost you have. So I think for those people who are looking to put more serious workloads, I think more high performance workloads, right? This is where Lambda gets a bit more interesting. It's not just a quick, it's not just an inexpensive serverless medium anymore. You can actually put a lot more stuff and run a lot more workloads. So it sounds like they're really shifting a lot of people to be using Lambda and making it a lot more broader for a lot of other use cases. Some over here, Proton. Okay, I think the one I wanted to highlight is that the Lambda, the duration building, right? So it's down from 100 ms to 1 ms. So I think for people who have significant Lambda workloads, right, and usually quick ephemeral kind that don't spend, like a few seconds, but rather it's just a lot more event driven in nature. I think this is just basically just cost reduction in general. So I think a lot of people are celebrating that one. Okay, and I think yeah, there's one more around like if you look at the announcement 41, right? They're really upgrading a lot of the stuff they're having in the data centers, and a lot of the focus is right now, I think, usually on the side of Graviton, the processing, as well as the 100G networking for their instances. So I think for people who are considering from a high performance computing world, right? It's really starting to get pretty interesting, because you actually have pretty good hardware for you to run your workloads, where most people might actually would refuse in the past to actually run those workloads in the cloud itself. Yeah, and all this I'll talk about in okay, there's one more. Okay, the ECR public repository, I felt that was interesting. So ECR is the Elastic Container Registry, but basically what that allows you to have is just a public container registry. When I saw this announcement, right, I felt this announcement was a reaction to, it could have been a reaction to like Docker. They actually recently announced caps. They announced the throttle on their public repositories. I'm assuming to deal with the cost. But I think for a lot of like the whole Docker world itself, right, where everything's on Docker Hub, I think there's going to be a lot more interesting options for people to actually shift out some of their container images and hosting around there, especially a lot more of the open source projects, right, to Amazon or other platforms itself. Yeah, and just a lot more. So during the first week, really about 65 of them. I'm going to go through some of this in slightly a bit more detail. Okay. So first one, I think that was quite, I think no one saw it was coming. EC2 for Mac. Yeah. And when I first saw the announcement, I thought I was like, okay, this is interesting. Then I saw the cost, and I saw the cost model for it, and I felt it wasn't interesting anymore. Yeah. So for EC2 Mac, right, I think they want you to it's I think it's a host. I can't remember. I think it's a dedicated host that you have to buy, and you have to buy like 24 hours in you have to pre-book them for 24 hours. So this one, I think, when I went to look through more of the details of why they did that, it seems to be due to Apple licensing model itself. Yeah. Okay. But I think for people in general who just want to have a lot more workloads, testing workloads, CI workloads, yeah, this could make a lot more sense, especially if they are very heavy on app development. Cool. Okay. This one was, I think this was this year's version of Andy Jassy telling everyone, just come to Amazon, right? So this Babelfish, right, basically it's just translation layer to run your SQL Server, your SQL Server workloads, right, and actually interacting with the Babelfish layer, and to use Aurora as the backend. Yeah, so instead of doing things like database migration service and porting over applications, right, right now it seems that the barrier to entry to running all world SQL workloads on Amazon is actually starting to decrease. Yeah, I think the context that when he made the announcement was because like Microsoft is pretty their licensing model is starting to get pretty aggressive. So in fact, a lot of them, they have changed it to become very Azure friendly, but unfriendly for everyone else. So I suspect this is like, just a start of the beginning. And it has a pretty cool name as well. Okay, AWS Proton. Yeah, anyone knows about this service or knows what it does? Yes, no? Okay, so this one, right? When I actually read the announcement, and I actually had a briefing from the product manager who was going through with some of us. So 2 points that stood out. This one is purpose built for organizations that have structured their teams in a certain way, where you have a platform team, you have a developer team, and you want to make sure that the I think is the serverless, the deployments that you have for container deployments, right, are structured in a way that is very platform centric. That means you have a platform team that dictates what exactly they want you to push out, and then they give you that foundation for you after that as a developer, right, to just use whatever they provide and then put on your workloads on top of whatever they have after that. Yeah, so this one is interesting because it's very dictated by the organization. So actually, Conway's law is actually playing right here into this law. And and the other thing that stood out in the briefing, right, was that the product manager actually acknowledged that a lot of people are very confused by this service. They have no idea what this service does. Yeah. So I think expect maybe the next few months, right, for people to actually say, hey, that this service is used for something. So they have to do a lot more education on this. And I think this is more useful for bigger organizations of where they have structure already in place. Okay. This was another one I think a lot of people maybe didn't know it was coming. But basically right now you can actually run your container images as Lambda. Yeah. So this one is quite weird because like the whole purpose for serverless was to move away from any infrastructure, right? Be it hosts or VMs or even containers into serverless. But this is kind of like the other way around. So when I was just picking more into this, I think one of the key things that I found was interesting is that Lambda functions on their own as of right now, right? They have certain size limits to whatever possible that you can run. But using this, right, you can actually unlock workloads that actually bypass the whole Lambda function, the limit on the size of the code that you can run, and that's where you can get images up to 10 gig. So besides the tooling effect, where what they are saying is that now you can still continue to use your container workflows like the way you used to, but even if you run it in Lambda, right? But there's actually some other benefits like that size limit that I think was mentioned. Okay, this one I found was interesting as well. So S3 for the longest time, they actually don't have a strong read after write consistency. So I think for a lot of people, this is not true for all cloud providers. I think GCP has pretty strong. I can't remember for Azure, but if you were actually expecting to run your workloads based on this principle, right? In the past, you probably have to mitigate this in some other areas itself. But I think what was quite impressive is that S3 being the giant that it is, right, and actually still and pushing this out. I think for those people where they have very serious workloads that require this principle to be held, right, I think it's a lot easier for them after this announcement came up. So if you're interested, just take a look at the blog. They actually mention a lot of the mechanics that goes into this. Okay. For those who use AWS Amplify, they're making it a lot easier. Yep. Yes, Lee, that's right. Okay. So for those who use AWS Amplify, right, and you know the Amplify, or you know what they're doing, Amplify is like just to be that single platform for you to build your own backend without a lot of work. This one, they're actually starting to introduce, like, you know, the admin UI, so you can actually do data modeling. You can do things that you normally would have to do outside or through or through other means, and putting it straight into the console itself. So I find this quite interesting, because the for people who really just um, don't want to do any other things, you just want to have like whole integrated developer experience, right? This is starting to really converge and starting to push them into the area itself. Yeah. So if you're using Amplify, I think you should really take a look at this. And you can actually do things like data modeling. Right there, you can set up the relationships, and then they'll actually set up the whole chain over them. Okay. This one, DevOps Guru is going to make. I think when I first saw this, I was like, oh my god, are all the DevOps guys now going to go to become redundant, right? So what they're actually doing here is they're actually using machine learning to have you know, just to be able to scale up your function, and it will see things where maybe you might not be monitoring. So think of, like, say, you know, like what GuardDuty did for security events world, right? Where, you know, I don't have to do anything, and it will tell me exactly what's you know, things are going on wrong in my environment, right? So DevOps Guru is going to be doing the same thing for your operations needs as well. So if you I think if you enable this, they will just suck in all the data, run through heuristics or ML, and then with that, right, they will recommend things that you are missing out in your environment. Okay, so this one, I think could see a lot of adoption from people who just want to. I don't think it's free. I definitely don't think it's free. Yeah, because they are still ingesting data. They have to recommend. Yeah. Okay, but hopefully it might be cheaper than maybe any of the other competitors out there, if there's even a competitor to what they're doing. Yeah, because if you go to, let's say, other monitoring platforms, right, some of them are more smart. They'll give you exactly the insights. Some of them you have to set up, and then after that you got to start doing your baseline and stuff like that. So this one is like kind of like a generation 2 type of monitoring system. Okay. Yep. Aurora serverless v2. I don't think this is available for Postgres in Singapore yet. I might be wrong, but from the people who I heard have been using this, they said the current serverless right now, the current V1 version is pretty limited, and the way that it scales, there's actually a period, right? I think like a minute or two, and then so it doesn't actually react fast enough for people to actually consider using this in more for production. So usually for serverless, they recommend really for non-critical dev test workloads. V2 is going to change that. V2 is really going to just be a whole lot better in terms of the auto scaling portion itself. So I think this one is quite interesting. It might be the case that maybe when the V2 serverless comes out, right, there might be actually less of a need to go for the non-serverless option and actually just move most workloads to this. I think the only thing stopping there is, from what I understood, the price is maybe double the current V1 serverless right now. So I think that's just still something they need to address in order for it. But I think, knowing Amazon, they'll probably just shift the prices downwards eventually itself. Okay. If you saw the keynote, this was interesting. The GP3 volume as well as the IO Block Express. Basically, they're actually upgrading their storage, their storage offerings. Most people use GP2 right now by default itself. It's the default when you actually spin up any EC2. So this one, definitely a lot more baseline performance is there. I think it's cheaper as well, and you can separately manage the the IOPS performance from the actual capacity. So there's actually a decoupling over there. So I think for those people who are very heavy users of EBS or volumes in general, this one, they should look out for this and the IO block express announcements. Cool. So that's just for the second week. Sorry, that's just for the first week. I hope that wasn't too much information overload. Okay. Cool. Everyone still with me? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the second week was a lot more. The focus was on two keynotes in particular. One was the machine learning keynote. So this was where I think the VP of ML on the AWS side, Swami, he was giving that presentation. And the other one is Peter DeSantis giving the infrastructure keynote. So these were the two big keynotes that were on the second week itself. One thing that stood out for me when I saw the machine learning keynote, right, is that there seems to be tons and tons and tons of SageMaker services coming up. Yeah. So right now, I think there's like maybe SageMaker. They announced SageMaker Clarify, SageMaker Pipeline, SageMaker. Yeah, it's like, I think they spent the last whole year set up 10 over pizza teams within Amazon itself. And every pizza team is now just putting in their own SageMaker service. So it's actually, they're actually doubling down a lot on their ML offerings. But the names and everything is just way too confusing. So if you are, I think you're an ML user, you might get very lost unless you start to dive a lot deeper into what they have. Okay. So second week announcements, I think there were 41 of them. This was all the announcements, mostly around their data and analytics, some of their infrastructure stuff like the Transit Gateway Connect, and yeah, stuff. So on this page, what's interesting is the reachability analyzer, which I will talk about later itself. I felt that one was quite interesting. I don't use any Redshift on my own, so but I think for people who are using Redshift, they should pay attention to announcement 7 to 12. I think there's some interesting stuff over there. Okay. For people who are a lot interested in very regulated environments, right, and have a need for serious cloud compliance, where you have to face auditors itself, announcement 21 is particularly very interesting. So I'll touch a bit on that later on. And on this page, yeah. So my understanding from all the SageMaker stuff and all the ML stuff that came out, and I don't know all of them, was that easily the most important announcement for the ML world was the SageMaker Clarify. So I'll touch a bit on this later, but I'm not a machine learning expert on my own. So just take my, you got to look through these announcements all by yourself if you're really interested in them. Right, and yeah, so if you look, it's pretty much very data centric or ML centric. The announcements on the second week. Cool. So the first one is actually the VPC reachability analyzer. So I think when this announcement was launched, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, they should have actually just this is something that has been required for many years, but usually when you are trying to determine the reachability, right, you actually have to trace out the connectivity on your own, or you actually have to use some tools to help you to navigate that. So this one is particularly very interesting because in Amazon they actually have an automated reasoning group. And if you look through the past, I think Reinvent, I think it was the last one or the one before. There's this IAM access analyzer tool that came out that actually formally reasons whether your resources are public or not, but they do it by mathematical formal reasoning in that sense. So that group has actually concentrated their efforts this year, right, to launch a reachability analyzer. So this one tells you what has connectivity to what without even understanding or monitoring packets through the whole system. Yeah. So if you're really interested, or you have this kind of problems every single day, or you just need a quick way to debug and to figure out why is something connected to something or something not connected to something, this is your answer to do that. Okay. Next thing, like I mentioned, the audit manager. So this one is very audit focused, and I think it scares. It can be quite scary for some people because like a lot of organizations, they like it's usually quite hard to tell exactly were you always maybe throughout the audit cycle, right? Like compliant to something. My understanding of this is that they actually take in data and they will tell you like maybe at what point in time were you non-compliant? Because when you talk about audits in general, like traditional audits in the past, they're usually just point in time. And then for most teams, right, if like, okay, the audit is coming, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to scramble everything and just make sure I pass the audit. Well, for this one right now, the way is continuous monitoring, right? So this one is going to be quite interesting because you can basically dispute, and the facts are all there, that the evidence are all there to say whether you were actually compliant, true or not. So definitely a godsend for most IT environments for regulated stuff. But yeah, so I think this will change the dynamics of in that world itself. Okay. SageMaker Clarify. I'm not going to go too much into this, but my understanding of it is that the ML models out there, right? They actually train them through training, and usually if the training data is faulty, right, then basically whatever model you train is just not good enough. So this Clarify actually works very early in the ML lifecycle, and it can detect that kind of bias that might be in the data and the models itself. So I think that's why when I was looking through a lot of blog articles that describe this, right, they were saying that this is easily probably the most important announcement that came out, especially for people who deal day to day with ML in AWS. Okay, so that was for the second week. Any questions? Yes? No? Okay, I hope you guys are still with me. We're going on to the third week. Okay, so the third week, the last keynote by Werner Vogels, I was actually quite thrown off by this keynote because he was actually basically talking in a factory, and his whole keynote was done in this particular factory itself. So it's very unusual from what he has actually done for previous keynotes before. And it was talking a lot more on how developers should be building their stuff, and how people should be building up the dependability basis itself. So this is a very interesting talk, especially for those who are resting and tired of announcements, but just want to know a lot more into what Werner is thinking. Right, this is the keynote to go for. And between all the 5 keynotes, right, you cannot miss any Jesse's one, and you cannot miss Werner's one. These are the 2 most important keynotes throughout the whole conference. Cool. So third week announcements, there are about 40 of them. Okay, so I'm just going to go through some of the more interesting ones, which I'm going to touch on quite shortly. So AWS has a new location service, which is in preview. Cloud Shell managed service for Prometheus. If you look at some of the announcements, it's usually very IoT related, very systems related for the third week. Okay, I'm not an IoT developer myself, so I have no interest in all the announcements from the IoT side. Okay, but if you are coming from the infrastructure world, and especially if you are in a very container heavy world, right, then you most likely would have been using Prometheus or Grafana already. So this is where this is pretty interesting, and I'll talk a bit more why it's interesting. Okay, so the first things first is Cloud Shell. Okay, Cloud Shell is something that is I think a lot of people has been asking for the longest time, and And it's something that after working with AWS and GCP, right? GCP's Cloud Shell is pretty amazing. It's very simple. It's very easy for people to actually run commands on their environment in I would say a pretty safe way. Before Cloud Shell, before running commands on the AWS console itself, what most people would have done is that they would have created access key, run the commands on your laptop or or somewhere else. But there's friction to doing that. If you just want to run some simple quick commands in a pretty secure, more ephemeral way, right? That is not really the answer to it. So this Cloud Shell, I think, is going to move towards that direction, and they're actually playing catch up to most of the other two cloud providers. I think Azure also does have some version of a Cloud Shell. Yeah. So if you're interested in this, it's going to come quite soon. Only in preview in a certain regions, but it'll be coming quite soon after that. But from what I think most other people are saying right now is that this is pretty good for just keeping a lot more of the control of your access to the environment just on the console itself, and for people who just want to do something quick. Okay. Manage Grafana and Prometheus. I found this interesting, not because it's a managed service, but if you know what Grafana and Prometheus are doing, I think Grafana is backed by this company called Grafana Labs. They are the one that are actually doing a lot more commercial. It's like a open source core, but with paid support and extensions and stuff like that. If you know like Amazon's history, right? They have been screwing every single OS as provider in the last few years, right? Like with Redis, with Elasticsearch, they burned the bridges so badly when they actually started to do managed versions of those tools itself. But when I was speaking through this, right, from Grafana and Prometheus, they actually are working on a joint go-to-market model itself. So it's not like they are actually taking away. I mean, they are competing in some sense with Grafana in terms of the hosting. But beyond that, they have actually made it in a way where if you wanted to get more paid extensions, right, you can actually go to the marketplace. And if you buy like the Grafana subscription model or stuff like that, then automatically your Grafana, your managed model over here, right, gets access to those extensions. Yeah. So this is very different from the way they have actually interacted with all the other tooling vendors in the past few years. So I hope that they can actually just go more towards that model itself in the future. Okay. And the last one that I think Werner mentioned during his keynote was the fault injection simulator, which what I understood, it's chaos engineering as a service model. So I think for people who just want to, they have been preaching about chaos engineering for the past few years, right? Or like since forever. And it's quite interesting that now they actually have a service that allows you to do that without running things like Chaos Monkey from Netflix or whatever. So this is gonna be making it pretty accessible for everyone. And yeah, US East one. Okay, and okay, thanks for that tip. Okay, but the other thing for this, right, is that I think to me, I think it's just gonna be a push for people to just, hey, I cannot survive chaos in my workloads. Let me build a lot more redundancy and availability in my whole system itself. So this is really going to demonstrate a lot more of the flaws and I think cause people to react in a different way to maybe, because now they have access to tools that are just easy to run in general to simulate faults. Yeah, and the last one is AWS location. I think this is I don't know, it's like Amazon's answer to Google Maps, but they're partnering with I think two other vendors, so it's not exactly their own data. They are not building a whole data team for Maps team like how Apple or Google has done it, but rather they're actually using providers out there and commercializing based off them itself. So this one, I think if you have any mapping needs, right, you can actually take a look at this and see if it's useful for you. It also might be cheaper. Cool. So I think that was a lot of information. I hope it wasn't too much. And just we stop over here, right? Any questions? Was there any announcements that you were particularly very interested in, or maybe disappointed? And I guess most of you all have that. You mentioned before you all have the announcement fatigue. Yeah, right. Okay, Lee says Docker in Lambda +1. Yep, Lee is a huge Docker fan. And anything that you wanted, you thought it was going to be announced but wasn't announced. How? Cool. So Pradipa, I think, yeah, because I think you are using that in your own workplace right now, right?
Yeah, we mostly run on serverless. So the Lambda was like the billing was a big plus for us. And we are planning to create some front-end application. So I thought like Amplify would be a better, uh, because Firebase was like, it's equivalent of Firebase. Firebase was already pretty advanced, right? So Amplify still have to catch up. So just need to see what we have in Amplify.
Okay, cool. Anyone else? Or everyone suffering from fatigue?
I think from my point of view that the last one with the chaos engine and all that kind of thing, that's going to be very useful. Yeah, the fault injection. Yeah, I think that simulator is going to be quite important for people to then scale and understand their environment as well.
But at the same time, there's already a project, like an open source project that is very, very similar to this whole fault injection simulator, where you also create experiments, templates across various different AWS services. Then you can use those templates and run in your CI environment to run them on a scheduled base and analyze the reports. So like that, such projects, like open source projects, are already in place. It's just that this service will make them no longer feasible, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. The fact that most enterprises that are been around for years, that they've got a very old school infrastructure in totality. So in the cloud environment, they're a little bit lazy and they'll just kind of push the AWS have got it, so we'll just buy that service.
True.
Yep. I think I can't remember if I saw correctly, but one thing I saw is that maybe they can simulate regions being offline or zones being offline. Because if they can do that, right, then actually that's very useful for if they can do it in I would say a fairly cheap or non or just easy to simulate way, right? I think that's a win, especially for people who trust that their workloads can actually survive. They think that workloads can survive those kind of scenarios, but they don't have the proof to do so.
I agree, and I think with the recent outage, it's got that would be the first thing if you're going to use this fault injection simulator. That's the first thing I would test. To then see how heavily I'm hedged on east 1, for example.
That's a very good point. I think some of their services out there have inherent dependencies on US East 1. So if you can simulate that, I think that will be an interesting game day.
There you go. There's an idea.
Yep. Okay, AWS certified librarian. Yep, I think maybe that could come out for 2021 as a new certification. So like maybe 1,000 points for the 1,000 services that if you know every one of them, you get more points. GPU support for Fargate. Yeah, okay. I think that was interesting. Do you have a use case for that? David? Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So, any other things people are interested in? Dynamo export to S3. Ah, yes, there's a managed airflow. I think that was pre-reinvent, right? I can't remember. Just before.
It's around this time, yeah.
Yeah, it was pre-Reinvent actually.
Yeah, I remember there was a product briefing by the product manager, but I didn't stay up for that one. Do any of you run your own Airflow installations right now?
Yeah, we do run our own Airflow. It's a big pain managing it. So hopefully this is something good. I don't know people who are running Airflow in Kubernetes. How is it for them? I hear it's much more easier, but we don't run Kubernetes at our workplace, so we run Airflow on EC2s, and scaling and managing is a very big task.
Okay. I think you really got to try it out. I wouldn't put bets on any new AWS service. Usually for the first year, there's usually some limitations that you have to address. Just to try it out. Proton with TF support. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna be talking about my own experience. So definitely for Reinvent, there was not going to be any just physical meetups, right? So I think one thing that was I didn't expect. So I'm part of this Heroes program. It's just basically just a programmer in general from the Amazon side. But this year they actually gave Oculus Quest to all the heroes. I think there's like 200 people in the world, and so I was quite pleasantly surprised. Is how come there's a Quest coming in? But what I didn't realize, right, was that on top of that they actually built a VR environment. I think they use Verizon's I think the VR as a vendor, right? And then they had this whole world. It's just for people to together, because usually we would normally gather in Reinvent itself and some stuff. So I thought this was pretty interesting. I can show you what kind of that actually looked like. Okay, let me just stop. Okay, yeah. So I haven't been doing VR for a few years already. Like I actually have the original Rift, but the Rift was a pain in the ass to set up because it has the sensors to actually do it. But with the Quest, you can actually it's all decoupled. You're not tethered to a computer or stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm just gonna show you.
Put music there.
Well, that's I don't know.
Yeah. So this was me just taking just videos and screenshots in the world. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing was that the like the headset, right? So the interesting thing was that they had spatial audio on the headset itself, so you could actually tell conversations coming in from left or right or front or center. So it was actually easy to get that kind of conversations you would have in real life. So I thought this was pretty interesting. Yeah. Okay. And I think there's one guy on the call, Pata also. Yeah, he was also had the same experience from Chennai. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so if you're not a believer, if you're not a believer in VR experiences, right, especially during this COVID times, right, I would strongly recommend you to reconsider and just try out something in the VR world, especially if you want to meet other people in a very different way. Okay, so that's just one of my experiences that I thought helped to like lessen the downers of the whole conference itself. Okay, then the other one that I normally go for was So the every single conference or Reinvent that I've been to, or even like when I was in Melbourne last year, they had their APAC community day, right? They actually have like jams or game days organized. So do anyone on the call actually have attended the jams or game days before? Just to show how much I should talk about this. No. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah. So I think when I was mailing out like telling people on the user group on the email, right? Hey, go and join game day, go and join the jams and stuff like that. And the reason why I do that is because these jams and game days, right? They are actually simulations. Think of it as hands-on, but hands-on in the competitive setting itself. So there's normally like a few quests that you can do, and you just yeah that was I won the game day in Vegas 2 years ago. Yeah, but basically the whole idea is that you just form up with people that you have never met before, and you just try to work through challenges. So I was actually going through I think for the two gems that I took part, security gem and the modernization and DevOps gems. This is my first time taking part, but I was doing the US challenge. So there are I think three, one for EMEA, one for US, and one for APAC. I can't go for the APAC one because of the timing and family. So I went for the US ones, which was early morning in Singapore itself. Yeah. And this one I thought was very interesting because the challenges weren't exactly very hard, not as hard as game day, but there's still a competitive element, and your goal is try to score as best as you can. I don't know what the price is, but I thought it was just fun to just compete, because in that kind of very that environment, right? Yeah, it's pretty stressful, but also exhilarating at the same time itself, and you get to meet friends you have never met before. Yeah, so this one was I thought if you ever have a chance for Reinvent for any other times, right, you should look out for this and really just work through the problems, because I think this is one of the best ways to actually learn something and put yourself on the spot to learn something, because you have no choice but just to work through the exercises to score as best as you can. Okay, so these were the two gems. I think there was another one, data and analytics one, which I didn't go for. Yeah. Then the other one, which I normally would want to go for, is game day. So game day is basically different teams, usually revolving around a unicorn. This year there were two teams. One was the Unicorn Polo League, and the other one I think is like a financial services game day. For the Unicorn Polo League, it's a new format this year. So what they actually do is, besides the game day scenario where you have quests that you have to finish up, right? In this case, they had a meta game going on, which was around unicorn racing. So think of like Pokemon training, or in this case, unicorn training and gym training, and then just sending your unicorn out for races. So the scoring element was slightly different for this year itself. So this was actually quite fun and a lot more stressful than the gem in general. I think in our case we had only 3%. Usually there will be 4% in the team, and I think halfway through one of my teammates dropped out. So by the time we finished the whole session, it was only two of us left. Yeah. So I did this one 2 a.m. Singapore time until 7 a.m. So by the time 7 a.m. I was like, I'm super exhausted just from this. Okay. So anyway, some final thoughts just from Reinvent itself, right? No physical Reinvent. Social interaction was obviously very limited. I think a lot of people they like the platform better than the usual one, like the Summit Singapore, which was a disaster because the videos cannot load properly. There was streaming issues and stuff like that. In this case, the streaming platform was a lot better, but the interaction with just everyone in general is still quite limited. So if COVID is still going to last until next year, right? Hopefully they can make the conference interaction experience a lot better, because most people actually go to the conference more for the networking more than anything else. Yeah. So I think this was what would probably make or break a conference next year. Yeah. Obviously, no dedicated time away from work. Like when you go through the sessions, then you have to just make a very an effort to actually just go through the content, because it's not like you can just spend a few days away. You still need to do your work. You still need to attend to family, right? There's all those distractions in life. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't really sure what was in the partner booth, but I think just now someone mentioned that they actually went for the other dog hunt. So hopefully there was something better from there out there. Yeah, and I think the last thing is that just for this particular year, if you miss maybe one of the sessions that you wanted to go for, you have to wait for the rerun. I think this was more true for the keynotes. So you have to actually just wait for a while until you get access to the content. So I think that was they're good and bad to that. In this case, I just wanted everything quite more immediately, so I thought that was quite bad. Yeah. So the good stuff, the video streams were stable. And for game days and jams, I like the fact there was no need to queue for it. Because usually in Vegas or anywhere else, you got to actually run to the room, run to the hotel, run to the room, and try to make sure you are like the first few to join the sessions, right? And usually it's quite hot. Like you have to be there. Like maybe let's say the session starts at 9 a.m. You have to be there at 7 a.m. just to make sure you get a spot to join the competition. But in this case, I could just wake up on time and just wait until like maybe the official time when they allow people to just come in, and then you just go for it. Yeah. So it was a lot less hassle, and it actually worked quite well, even though there were like people all over the world. But yeah, most of us, we were just using like video conferencing to just get in touch and just work through the problems. Definitely a lot of interesting announcements, and yeah, for me, I think the experience of the VR world was really quite interesting. So I was thinking that maybe I'll try more of this stuff post Reinvent if any other people has it. Okay, cool. So just last few questions. Any overall thoughts around Reinvent? You know, how was it actually like? You know, any positive or negative feedback that maybe I can actually help to bring up to the organizers. Huh? Anyone? Because this is the last slide already. Okay, yeah, definitely the networking part, for sure. Three weeks is tiresome. Like in what way?
Too many events to catch up, and sometimes it's in the odd time. So I was like very, very vigorous to attend the first week, and then I gave up.
Okay. Do you use the Reinvent the schedule planner to help you, or you use the clock packbot?
No, the schedule planner.
Okay.
Slackbot was not helping. Like it is not listing all the events, right?
The packbot, I think it does. In fact, I couldn't, because with so many events, right? Then you
Yeah.
actually, you don't really care about blocks of you don't really care for the UI that the other thing has. So
Yep.
what you normally want is just a condensed version of all the events with a lot of searching functionality. Yeah, so I actually ended up using the Packbot, and I gave up on the schedule planner. Yeah.
Oh.
I only go to the schedule planner if I doubt that the Packbot data is correct, because the source of truth is ultimately from the AWS side.
Yeah.
Oh, anyone else? Okay, if not, then thanks for listening to me. And if you want to stay on the call, we can catch up after the call itself on Zoom. Just stay back on the channel. If not, thanks for coming, and see you guys in 2021. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.